Welcome to Movies in Minutes, where we learn all about a movie in a fraction of the time. My name is Tyler Style, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at Joker. Joker was directed by Todd Phillips and stars Joaquin Phoenix, who actually won the Oscar for Best Actor with his performance. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We start the movie with Arthur Fleck, a professional clown who's putting on his makeup. He seems a little sad, but he needs to turn that frown upside down. Okay, maybe don't do that. He's doing a gig as a sign holder when some teens steal his sign. He chases after them into an alley, which turns to be a costly mistake when he gets beat down and robbed. We skip to Arthur laughing hysterically when at a meeting with a social worker. Joaquin Phoenix actually said that the toughest part about this role was perfecting the Joker's laugh. He actually watched this video of a real patient's pathological laughter and took inspiration from it to make the Joker's laugh. The social worker asks if he is still writing in his journal, and after a while he gives her it to go through. After reading some of the content, she is concerned about his well-being, and he says he thinks he'd be happier in a mental hospital. They end the conversation with him asking for more medication, even though he's already on 7 different medications. Arthur is on the bus going home where he meets a little boy. He starts making faces at the boy to entertain him, and he's enjoying it, but his mother isn't.
Can you please stop bothering my kid?
This causes Arthur to start laughing, and the mother gets even more upset. Arthur hands her a card saying that he has a medical condition where he can't stop laughing. Arthur gets home and greets his mother, Penny, who is upset with Thomas Wayne because he hasn't responded to a letter she sent him, even though she worked for him for years. They sit down to watch The Murray Franklin Show, where Murray is played by Robert De Niro. We see Arthur in the audience, and he yells, "I love you, Murray." They shine the lights on Arthur, and after a conversation, Murray invites Arthur down to the stage and tells him that he would give up everything to have a kid like Arthur. Arthur is back at work with the other clowns, and fellow clown Randall heard about the beatdown that Arthur took and gives him a gun that he reluctantly accepts. Arthur gets called back to the manager's office. The manager tells Arthur that he needs to return the sign, thinking Arthur stole it, and if he doesn't, he will have to deduct it from his pay. Arthur takes his frustration out on some trash, and when he gets home, he meets his neighbors, Sophie and Gigi. She mimics her shooting herself, and when they get off the elevator, Arthur copies her. But isn't your head supposed to go the other way when you shoot yourself? Arthur is giving his mom a bath, and Penny is talking about how Thomas Wayne will help them with their financial issues, even though Arthur doesn't agree. But he says she shouldn't have to worry about finances because he's ready to be a stand-up comedian.
Don't you have to be funny to be a comedian?
Goddamn, Penny, you don't gotta do him like that. Arthur is messing around with the gun and starts dancing around with it. Joaquin Phoenix actually lost 52 pounds for this role, but he didn't lose his dance moves. He acts like he's going to shoot someone and accidentally fires the gun. The next morning, he creepily watches Sophie take her daughter to school and then follows her on the subway and to her work. We fast forward to Pogo's Comedy Club, and the name Pogo's was the stage name for professional clown and serial killer John Wayne Gacy. The makeup for the Joker in this movie was also inspired by John Wayne Gacy's clown makeup. Arthur is watching another comedian and taking notes on what he does right in order to help Arthur perfect his act. Arthur is back home where he is writing in his journal. On his jokes page, he writes, "People expect you to behave as if you don't." He gets interrupted by the doorbell ringing, and it's Sophie, and she asks if he was following him. He says that he was, and asks if she wanted to see him do stand-up comedy at the comedy club. She accepts and walks away. That's kind of a weird reaction after he was stalking her. Arthur's at a children's hospital where he's performing for the kids. He must be really happy because he's clapping his hands, stomping his feet, but he might be doing it a little too hard because his gun falls out of his pant leg. He loses his job over the incident, and his boss tells him that Randall said that Arthur tried to buy a gun from him the week prior. Arthur is on the subway ride home where some Wall Street guys are harassing a woman. Arthur starts laughing and they quickly turn to him. The Wall Street guys start mocking him and take his bag. They start beating him down, kicking him, and that's when Arthur decides he's had enough. Arthur pulls out his gun and starts shooting, killing 2 of the men. The last one gets away with a bullet wound, and when he tries to run out of the subway, Arthur finishes the job, emptying the clip into the man's back. Arthur runs away and makes it into a public bathroom, where he starts showing off his dance moves. He gets to his apartment building and goes to Sophie's front door and greets her with a big ol' smooch. The next morning, Arthur is cleaning out his stuff from work when the other clowns are talking about last night's murder. Arthur spills the beans that Randall gave him the gun, and when Randall objects, Arthur leaves, but comes back because
I forgot to punch out.
Arthur is back home and he and his mom watch Thomas Wayne talk about the subway murders, and the reason he is running for mayor is to make Gotham a better place. Arthur is at the social worker's office and she gives him the bad news that they are closing down the office and he won't be able to visit her anymore, which also means he's not going to be getting his medication. Arthur is back at Pogo's Comedy Club where he is finally going to do his stand-up act with Sophie watching. He tries to introduce himself, but the laughter is getting the better of him. He finally gets a hold of it and starts telling his jokes. The first one gets a little laugh and he pulls out his journal to read more. We don't hear any more jokes, but we hear the audience laughing and Arthur raising his arms. After the show, Arthur and Sophie are walking through the streets and they see a newspaper about the murders, where Sophie says that she thinks the guy who killed the men is a hero. Arthur turns around to see someone with a clown mask on in a taxi. Arthur goes back home where his mom is watching the Murray Franklin show. The show ends and they start dancing. Penny goes to bed and Arthur sees a letter from Thomas Wayne on the coffee table. The letter basically says that Penny had a son with Thomas Wayne, which would be Arthur, meaning that the Joker and Batman would be half-brothers. Arthur confronts his mom about the situation and she confirms what the letter says. The next morning, Arthur goes to Thomas Wayne's house where he sees Bruce Wayne in the front yard. He tries to entertain Bruce with a magic wand and some dancing, but then he gets a little too comfortable. Security stops the weirdness, and I just wish the actor was Chris Hansen. That would have been comedy gold. Arthur introduces him as Penny Fleck's son, and it seems that the security guard knows who she is. The guard says that his mom is delusional, and that makes Arthur upset, grabbing him through the gates, eventually letting go of him and running away. He goes home to see his mom on a stretcher with paramedics. He waits outside the hospital when two detectives confront him about the subway killings. They actually questioned his mother earlier, and that's what caused her to have a stroke and brought to the hospital. The detectives say they know about the gun at the children's hospital, but Arthur leaves to stay by his mother's side. Sophie is with him now, and she leaves to go get coffee. In the room, there's a TV that is playing the Murray Franklin show, and Murray brings up a clip of Arthur at the comedy club, just hysterically laughing and absolutely flopping. And Murray just makes fun of him, destroying Arthur's self-confidence.
Everyone laughed at me. Well, no one's laughing now.
You can say that again, pal.
We find Arthur laying in his bed, not wanting to get up, until he sees on TV that there is a protest against the rich with people dressing up as clowns. Arthur goes to one of these protests and gets past everyone to get into a movie theater dressed as an usher. The audience looks to be part of the upper class of Gotham, including Thomas Wayne. Thomas gets up to go to the bathroom and Arthur follows him. Arthur confronts Thomas, which leads to Thomas saying that he is not Arthur's father and said that Arthur was actually adopted. This makes Arthur visually distraught, and after Thomas says his mom is crazy, Arthur starts laughing.
Dad, it's me!
Arthur is back home and not answering the phone calls from the detectives at the hospital. Instead, Arthur removes the shelves from the refrigerator and hides in it. But he gets out when he gets a call from a representative from the Murray Franklin show, asking him to join the show for an interview, which Arthur accepts. Arthur goes to the Arkham State Hospital in order to try to figure out information about his mom, but the employee can't give him much. So, what is the next best option? Well, maybe not that. Arthur runs down some stairs and stops to read the private information and how Arthur was adopted, as well as how she let her boyfriend abuse Arthur as a young kid, and how he was found tied to a radiator with multiple bruises and severe head trauma. Arthur gets back to the apartment building and goes into Sophie's apartment. He starts feeling up on all her stuff when she asks what he's doing in there, telling him that he's in the wrong apartment. She's visually scared, and this is where we learn that he was hallucinating all of his encounters with Sophie, and they never talked after the elevator. Arthur goes back to the hospital to check on his mom. After basically telling her that he knows he's adopted, he ends up taking her future into his own hands by smothering her with a pillow. Arthur is back at his home where he is practicing his entrance for the Murray Franklin show, where he says the killer joke he wants to say to Murray.
Knock, knock.
Arthur is getting ready for the show and, ew, I don't think you're supposed to do that. Someone rings the doorbell and Arthur grabs a pair of scissors and opens the door. It's Randall and Gary, a couple of the clowns from his old work who heard about the death of his mom. They're saying that cops have been coming around the office and Randall is worried about what Arthur told the detectives. But Randall doesn't have to worry about the detectives because Arthur decides to stab him multiple times and ends up killing him. Now, Arthur has another issue, as Gary's a witness. Arthur says he's not going to hurt Gary and that he can go, but Gary has to get past Arthur to get to the front door. Arthur jump scares him, but Gary gets to the door. But there's only one issue. Arthur gets the lock and opens the door, but then closes it to say that he's the only one that was ever nice to Arthur, so he gives him a big ol' smooch on the head and lets Gary go. Arthur is finally ready for the Murray Franklin show with his makeup, suit, and some killer dance moves. However, the detectives have different plans for Arthur. They yell for him and Arthur runs away into oncoming traffic and gets hit by a taxi. He gets up and gets on a subway full of people in clown masks, causing the detectives to lose Arthur and the group. The detective shoots one of the protesters and that causes the others to jump him. You know what happens when Arthur finally doesn't get jumped himself? He's dancing. He gets to the Murray Franklin show and Murray and Jean ask about the makeup and are hesitant to put him on. But they decide that they will and Arthur has one more request for Murray, asking that Murray introduces him as Joker. Before Arthur gets on stage, Murray says on the show that their next guest has a lot of problems and they replay his clip at the comedy club. It's finally showtime for Arthur and he comes out dancing. He shakes Murray's hands and gives the biggest of all smooches to Dr. Sally. Arthur tells people he's just trying to make people laugh, and Murray asks for some new material. Arthur pulls out his journal that Murray mocks him for, but Arthur just wants to get the joke right. I bet it's a good one.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the police, ma'am. Your son's been hit by a drunk driver. He's dead.
Murray doesn't like the joke, and Arthur admits to killing the Wall Street men live on the show. Murray is waiting for the punchline that doesn't come, and Arthur says that his life is a comedy. This makes Murray get upset that Arthur thinks that killing those men was funny, and Arthur says that he killed those guys because they were horrible and deserved it. Arthur goes on a tangent about how awful people are nowadays and how Thomas Wayne doesn't care about others. Murray tells Arthur that not everyone is awful, but Arthur says that Murray is awful for making fun of him and just putting him on the show to make fun of him some more. But Arthur wants to redeem himself from his previous comedy stints with one more joke.
What do you get
I don't think so.
when you cross
I think
a
we're
mentally
done
ill
with your
loner
jokes.
with
That's
a
it.
society that abandons him and treats him like trash?
Call the police,
I'll
Gene.
tell you what you get.
Call the police.
You get what you fucking deserve.
Arthur kills Murray and everyone starts running out of the studio, except for Arthur, who takes one more shot and finishes the show with Murray's catchphrase. We go to a bunch of news channels talking about the murder and see Arthur in the back of a police car. The protesters are getting out of control and are all over the town. Two of the protesters crash an ambulance into the police car and then pull Arthur out from the back seat. They place him on top of the car and we see all of the rioting and looting going on around the town. Thomas, Martha, and Bruce Wayne are walking through the streets when one of the protesters starts following them. The protester shoots Thomas and Martha in an alley, leaving Bruce alone. Arthur is coughing up blood on the hood of the cop car, but that doesn't stop him from getting up and dancing, while all of the protesters cheer him on. The movie ends with Arthur in a mental asylum talking to a psychiatrist, and after laughing hysterically, it looks like he killed her, as he walks down a hallway with bloody footprints and being chased. Joker was released in 2019 and was one of, if not my favorite movie of that year. Personally, I loved the movie, but I would love even more to know what you guys thought about it in the comments. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like it and even subscribe if you want. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and that's life.
That's life.